Hey everyone, welcome to Bite-Sized Crypto. Today the United Kingdom saw the largest wave of cost of living protests across the country. People took to the streets in 50 cities to protest recent jumps in gas and electricity unit prices that will prompt bills to soar. Social media showed large crowds at events in Glasgow, Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle and Belfast, among others. Some protesters even burned their utility bills, just days after the government's £150 billion energy price guarantee came into effect, which allows average households' bills to hit £2,500 a year. But for the British, as well as for people in other European countries, the worst might still be lying ahead when it comes to increasing costs of living. Earlier this week, Bank of England had to step back from its quantitative tightening program in order to save the struggling bond markets by injecting £65 billion into the system. Bank of England said that it will continue purchases of government debt, which means that the money printers won't stop even though official inflation numbers just hit 10%. These problems also affect other Western governments and central banks. That's because the global financial sector is so highly interconnected, meaning that once things start to crash in one place, it also affects the system elsewhere. And indeed, cracks start to show in other places as well. In yesterday's video I talked about how Credit Suisse, one of the world's systematically important banks, was at the brink of collapse. In fact, what happens now reminds a lot of investors of the weeks before the great financial crisis in 2008, when the system started to unravel rapidly. So, what will governments and central banks do about all of this? Well, their main priority is to keep the system running. That's why governments and central banks will pick the only option left, which is to print more money to bail out failing corporations and to support the population. Better to devalue your currency than to lose it entirely. Yes, it's ironic to fight inflation by printing more money, but also quite obvious if you see it from the government's perspective. After all, it's not their own money they're using. So, we can expect the British and other European governments to print their currencies into oblivion the further things progress. Quantitative easing will come back, they just will give it another name. Just as the German government called its latest €200 billion injection a relief plan. Meanwhile, markets continue to get hammered and the only asset showing signs of strength is Bitcoin. That's because Bitcoin's fixed supply offers an alternative to desperate central banks that keep on devaluing their fiat currencies. And that's why it doesn't really surprise that over the last few days, numbers of people who spent British pounds and euros to buy Bitcoin have reached record levels. Back to the protests and the burning of energy bills in the UK, Don't Pay UK, a grassroots movement, has received almost 200,000 pledges from householders that say that they will not pay their energy bills. Once a critical mass is reached, energy providers themselves might be in need of another bailout, which means the UK government will have to print even more money. As you can see, it's a vicious circle, which means that you shouldn't expect inflation to go down again in the near term. That's it for this video. If you like this content, please like, share and subscribe. See you next time.